We'll be reading scripture this morning from the book of Hebrews, and be chapter 11, verses 23 through 28 to begin. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who was invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. And in chapter 12, verses 1 and 2 of Hebrews, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race that's marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God.
Think I'm on? Good. Chumrip so bang bon thing all can yom sabaya kriya da young thing all job knia tonight ni some tribe on kumpre Yesu, which of course means good morning, my wonderful friends. I'm glad we could all join together to worship God. It is so good to see you here today, and it's good for us to be here. I wish we had longer. I wish you know from our family that we love you. All the ones that we know, the ones that we don't know, we wish we could get to know you better. I wish we had hours we could sit down and talk about how you're doing and what's going on and what's happening in your life, but we don't. So moving on today, we're going to study about the cloud of witnesses, and my topic is Moses. I want us to start, please, with Hebrews chapter 12 again. So turn in your Bibles there. In my version it says, therefore, since we have, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we have such a great cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race set before us. And he's going to go on and tell us the way that we do that is to fix our eyes on Jesus. That's our goal, and that's how we can run this and do this. But you get the idea, and you see that he's using the example of running a race. And the race is not a sprint. It's not 100 yards, it's not 200 yards, it's not 400 yards. Because he tells us you're going to have to run this race with endurance. This is a marathon. This is a lifetime race. And we're going to have to work at it to be able to run this race. And he tells us too, throw off my version calls it encumbrance. Everything that would weigh you down, be it good or bad, and get in the way while you're trying to run. Would it not be crazy for someone running a marathon or even running a 100-yard dash to put a 20-pound backpack on their back? You'd say, you're nuts. Don't do that. And that's what he's telling us here. Whatever good, bad, indifferent, whatever keeps you from running the race, you put it down. It's like a 20-pound pack, a 50-pound weight on your shoulders. Get rid of it. You don't run a race that way. And he also says, get rid of the sin which so easily entangles us. Now, I know that looking at me, you would not imagine that I like to run and sometimes try to exercise, but I do. And you go out running sometimes, and if it's in the dark and you hit a piece of string or wire or something and it wraps around your legs, what happens? You fall flat on your fat face. And that's what he's telling us with sin. He says sin will entangle you, will wrap you up, will tie around your legs and your body while you're trying to run the race. He says, get rid of that. Look at your life and make sure you're getting rid of the sin which entangles you and keeps you from running. But the theme that I think you've been studying and looking at in this is at the start, he says, therefore, since we have such a great cloud of witnesses surrounding us. Now, who are these witnesses? Well, if you got a race and you got people in the stands cheering. And this is how I picture it. We're running our race of life, running our race of endurance, trying to follow God, and we've put off the things that weigh us down, and we're getting rid of the sin that entangles us, and we're running our race. It's hard. But if there are people in the stands and they're cheering you on, they're saying, go, go, go. And the crowd is just huge, hollering your name, Brent, Brent, Brent. Then you have more energy to do it, and you don't quit. And that's what he's telling us here. Since we have a great cloud of witnesses in the stands cheering us on, then don't quit. Keep running the race. Who are these witnesses? Well, all the people in the last chapter. Everyone that he talks about there. Abel and Noah and Moses and David and all of those. They can't speak to us today, but through the Bible, they show us and they cheer us on. And Noah says to us, okay, if nobody else believes, you keep running. Go, go, go. And David says to us, if you stumble and you fall down, you scrape yourself up, you sin, don't quit. Get up. Keep running. And Abraham says, if you can't see, you wait and you wait and you wait for God and it doesn't seem like He's doing what He promised, don't give up. Keep running. And all of these are cheering us on and calling our names from the pages of the Bible, saying, run the race. Run. Don't quit. And today we're going to look at the man Moses. Moses teaches us so many things. All through, I appreciate Tim's comments about how Moses had the courage to ask God to see His face. And you think of Moses being called the most humble man in the world, and you think there's so many things about Moses we can learn from. I want us to start and look at the way he cheers us on from the start of his ministry with the Israelite people. You know the story of Moses, and here's what he does. In chapter 1 of Exodus, turn to Exodus chapter 3. We're going to be in chapter 3 and chapter 4 today. In Exodus chapter 1, a new king rises that didn't know Joseph. And he doesn't, all the Israelites are out there and they decide to make them slaves. And now the Israelite people are slaves. But there's still too many of them. And so the king, the Pharaoh, says, hey, I want you to kill all the boy Israelites that come. And Moses is born and his mom doesn't want to kill him or give him up to death. So she makes the basket and she puts him in the river. And Pharaoh's daughter comes and sees him, draws him out. And that's where he gets his name. Moses means drawn out. And so she pulls her out, and because she's Pharaoh's daughter, she can get away with keeping a baby. And so she says, hey, we're not going to kill this one. We're going to take care of him. And Moses gets to be raised. His mother has a big influence on his life, but he's raised in Pharaoh's house until he's about 40 years old. He gets to be in the king's family. He gets to enjoy the best education and the best food, and maybe even had a shot at being Pharaoh himself someday. And then he killed the Egyptian. You know that story. And he had to flee. Pharaoh, the Pharaoh that's the king then, tries to kill him, so he flees to Midian. And he marries a shepherd girl. So for 40 years, he's a shepherd. He's been to the top, he's been to the bottom. And nothing against shepherds, okay? If you're a shepherd, don't be angry with me, but you know how the world thinks about things. He's been in the penthouse, now in the outhouse. And we know from the Bible, he's about 80 years old now. And he started back home one day, and this is his life. And that's okay, but this is his life. And in chapter 3, he's leading the flock back, and an angel of the Lord appears to him in a burning bush, verse 2. And the bush is not burning up, and yet it's still on fire. And so he says, what in the world? That's the Hebrew. I must turn aside, is what he says in the Bible. I must turn aside and look at this and see what it is. And so he gets closer and he hears the voice of God say, Moses, take your shoes off. The ground you're on is holy. Which, by the way, this is the reason I take my shoes off in Cambodia to teach from this passage of the Bible. I think it's God-inspired. But he said, Moses, take your shoes off. This is holy ground. And he gets closer, and God tells him in verse 6, I'm the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face. And then God is going to go on in verses 7 and following and say, I've seen the affliction of my people. They've been slaves for 400 years, and I can't stand it anymore, and it's time, and I'm going to come to rescue them, and I'm going to do it through you. Verse 10. Come now, I will send you to Pharaoh so that you can bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses maybe was excited for the Israelites, but he seemed to be scared for himself. And that's what we're going to look at today. As we look at the start of Moses' life, I want us to see the excuses that he tries to give to God for why he doesn't need to be the one to go. But I hope, too, that we see the practical application of the missions that God sends us on and how we sometimes want to use these same excuses. And I want us to learn from Moses what he learned about God. Look in chapter 3 and verse 11. Here's the first excuse. Moses says to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? Who am I? I'm an 80-year-old man. 80 years old. And you're giving me a mission? I'm a failure. I mean, I was there once, but I've lost it. I'm a shepherd in the wilderness. And you want me to go? Surely there's somebody better. Why send me? Are you sure, God?" Look at all the things that Moses could say, "I can't do this. Why do you want me to go? Look around, God. There's got to be somebody better." Look at God's answer to him. Verse 12. "Certainly I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that I've sent you. When I brought you the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain." God's answer to him is, it doesn't really matter so much who you are. I'll be with you. Just go. Now, when you think about that for us, there's so many times I look around and say, who am I to do this? Who am I to teach a third grade class? Who am I to talk to my neighbor about? Who am I to go help this person? Who am I to lead this thing? Who am I to be in this life group? Who am I to do? And it's easy to say, and list all the reasons why I can't do it, or you can't do it. But you look at, Moses had all those reasons too. And God's answer to him was, just go. I'll be with you. Just go and do it. Because it's not about you, it's about me. Look at his second excuse in verse 13. I don't know if your children did this or not, but my children at times, if they had one excuse and I shot it down, they were pretty good at coming up with another excuse and another excuse and another excuse. And Moses does the same kind of thing. And as adults, we're maybe more sly about doing that, but Moses does the same kind of thing. And now he's got another reason. Here's what he says in verse 13. Moses said to God, "Behold, I am going to the sons of Israel, and I will say to them, the God of our fathers has sent me to you. Now they may say to me, what is his name? What do I say to them?" In other words, the first question is, who am I? The second question, the second excuse is, who are you? Who sent me? Now, God's appeared to him, and he knows it's God. But I'm not sure he's quite where he needs to be on understanding who God is. And here's the answer that he gets back. Verse 14. You know this well. He says, I am who I am. You shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. This I am is the same word that Jesus uses in John chapter 8. And the Pharisees get mad at him because they understand he's saying, I am God. And in John 8, they pick up stones to kill him because they understand. But if you look at this even more, this I am is the word Yahweh, Jehovah. And before this time, God had not revealed his name to the Israelites like that. Look in chapter 6, verse 3. God says to Moses in verse 2, he speaks to Moses, and in verse 3, he says, I appeared to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob as God Almighty, El Shaddai. But by my name, Lord, Yahweh, I am, I did not make myself known to them. And you go on and read the rest of that, and he talks some more about his name. Abraham knew God, but not by the name Yahweh. And Jacob knew God, and Isaac knew God, but not by this name. And if you study through the Old Testament, you see that the word Yahweh, Jehovah, this name is used almost all the time when God wants to talk about relationship. When God wants to say who He is in relation to us. Now, El Shaddai means all-powerful, almighty. Bring on the power. Yahweh is, I am your God, and you are my people. And that's what He tells Moses here. This is who is sending you, the God who says, I want to be with you. You are my people. This is who's coming with you. Not just the God of all power, but the God who is here and who is present. And who says, I will, in Jeremiah for us, says, I will be in your hearts. This is who's going with you. As Moses looks at that and sees and understands, God tells him, they will listen to you. I want you to understand who I am so that you know. Now for us, I would think everyone in here would say, I believe in God. There are times when it's difficult for us to understand, just being humans, it's difficult for us to understand who God is. I can see the mountains and the trees and the ocean, and I know someone made that, and I know God did that. But to really know and understand the all-powerful being who made us to be with Him, that's who's talking here. And that's who sends me on whatever mission it is. And that's who sends you on whatever it is. He says, don't be afraid because I, who am God, want to be with you, and I'm going with you too. Oh, we could talk about that forever. Moses hears that answer. He understands the relationship that he has with God, at least a little bit. God tells him in verse 18, they will listen to you. And then in chapter 4, though, Moses still asks, what if they don't believe me? Here's the third excuse. Chapter 4, verse 1. What if they don't believe me? What if the ones you send me to won't listen? What if they say the Lord has not appeared to you? Now, there was a risk of that happening, I guess. But God's already told him they're going to listen to you. And here's the answer that Moses gets back, and then we'll apply it to us. Verse 2, God says, what do you have in your hand? Moses says, a staff. God says, throw it down. He throws it down. You know what happens to it? It becomes a snake. And what does it say Moses did? End of verse 3. Look at that. What does Moses do? He flees from it. Okay? This is an 80-year-old barefoot man in the desert. And what does he do? He runs. Ah! Why? Well, probably like me, he hates snakes. This is a snake. And what does God tell him to do? Yeah, go back and pick it up. What? My dad shot a rattlesnake right there in front of my feet when I was about 9 years old. Oh, and to this day, I hate snakes. I hear that rattle. Sometimes I hear a baby rattle, and I freeze up. Okay, I hate snakes, and I understand Moses fleeing from this snake, and God says, "Go pick it back up," and he picks it up, and it becomes a staff again. And then what's God tell him? Take your hand, verse 6. Take your hand, stick it inside your shirt, pull it out. It's leprous. Put it back in. It changes back. And then God tells him, if this is not enough for them to believe, I'm going to let you take some water and pour it out, and it'll become blood. They'll believe you. See, you see the answer here for Moses? It's, look, again, it's not by your power that you're going. It's by my power. It's God talking. It's by my power that you're going. They're going to believe you. They're going to listen. Now, what's the application for us? The easiest one to see, because he talks about talking, is when I want to say, God, I know you told me to talk to my neighbors about you. I know you told me to talk to my friends. I know you told me to talk to my family. But what if they don't listen? What if they don't believe? What if they mock me? What if they... And on and on and on and on. And the answer, God says, it's my power. Okay, and there will be times that we're going to teach people and they're not going to listen. Maybe at the start. Maybe we planted a seed. We don't know. We just know God tells us, here's the mission. Don't quit. just because you're afraid they won't believe, they won't listen, they won't whatever else. The bigger application is, what if I can't do this? And again, the answer to us is it's by God's power that's going to happen, not mine. So whether it's teaching a class, whether it's leading something, whether it's talking to your friends, whether it's on and on and on. I don't know what mission God's going to give you. I just know don't stop because we're afraid I can't do it. Because it's God's power that's going to make it happen. Really, that leads us to the fourth excuse. Look down at verse 10. A lot of these overlap. Look down at verse 10 of chapter 4. Moses says, "Please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in the time past, nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." What's Moses saying? I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't have the skill for this. I don't have the talent for this. You need someone who can speak, who can be a leader, who can talk quickly and think on their feet and whatever else. And he says, I can't do it. I don't have the skill for this, God. Again, he's going to learn that it's not by his power, not his ability, that things are going to happen. Look at verse 11. God said, "Who made a man's mouth? Who makes him dumb or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Then go, and I, even I, will be with your mouth." See, God tells him, it's not by your power this is going to happen. Just go do it. For me, this is one of the easiest excuses that I can whip out sometimes when I don't want to do something I think God's called me to do. I can't do it. I can't. I don't have the skill for this. I don't have the talent for this. I don't have the desire for this, God. Don't make me do it. There's lots of people better. Pick somebody else. And yet, when God gives us a mission, what he says to Moses is, I made your mouth. If I want you to talk, you'll talk. If I want you to see, you'll see. It's not on you, it's on me. So go. Now, you know I'm not telling you, there's some things that we can do and we can gain skills and talent by and get better. There's some things we're just maybe not meant to do. I don't know that I'm going to be leading singing here anytime. I don't know that you want me to, okay? But I don't know that God's called me to either. So you know there's some things maybe that, hey, there are other people or someone else is doing it, but when God calls us to something, then we don't need to say, no, I can't do it. Because when we do that, who are we trusting in? Trusting in ourselves. And God says, I made your mouth. Go. So if he calls us to do it, then he's going to help us do it. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. If it's teaching somebody, if it's being an example of how someone survives cancer, if it's going to someone who's hurting, if it's whatever it is, then we can do it because it's not on us. It's our God who will help us do it. And here's the fifth excuse. Verse 13, chapter 4, he says, please, Lord, send this message with somebody else. Please let somebody else go. You guys know we have 3 boys at our house. At times in the summer when it's time to mow the yard, son, please mow the yard. Dad, please let him do it. No, I can't do it. Please let him do it. And we play the game of pass around because we don't want to do it. And Moses is doing the same thing here with God. Please, God, send somebody else. And you could list out all the excuses he's got. I'm an 80-year-old man. I'm a failure. I live in the wilderness. Blah, 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 blah. Which is Khmer for blah, 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 blah. Okay? He could list out all these things and say, send somebody else. I can't do it. Someone else has got to be better than me. And you know what? A lot of times that's true. There may be somebody that can do this job or that job better than you. But if God sends us, then he wants us to go. And you're going to see that in the response here. Much like a parent, verse 14, My version says, the anger of the Lord burned against Moses. I understand that. When you told your child, do this, do this, do this. No, I can't. Stop it. Go do it. Okay? And that's what I think God's telling Moses here. Here comes your brother Aaron. I know he speaks fluently. He'll be your mouth. But you're still going to go, Moses. And so Moses goes. Again, real simple for us to say, someone's better than me. God, please send somebody else. Let one of the elders do it. Let the preacher do it. Let this person do it. Let that person do it. But not me. But what we learn from Moses, what he cheers to us from the crowd and says, is go. If God calls you, go. Because we know the story. You know the result. What happened because Moses went? 1 million slaves were set free. Pharaoh and all the people of Egypt knew that the Lord was God. The people had a land, a country of their own. Samuel came and King David came and the line that would bring the Christ came because Moses went. All the excuses in the world. Moses had them. We can have them. Who knows what great things God will do if we'll just go and do what He calls us to go and do. Here's the excuses again. You've heard them from Moses. You know you've used them yourself. Who am I? Who's sending me? Who are you really, God? What if I can't do it? What if they don't believe? And then to say, I can't do it. And then, God, please, please send someone else. You know, too, Moses cheers to us from the stands and says, go, 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 because we see the results in his life. And you know the consequences of what happened because he went. I wish for all of us, my brothers and sisters, that we learn and see, open our eyes to the thing God calls us to, whatever it is. I hope we have the courage to go. Even if we run through the excuses, know God's answers is, it's not on you, it's on me. Just go. And our invitation is to see our God, to see Moses as a witness who says to us, go, and the results will be incredible. Today, if you need to respond to Jesus in any way, we'll give you the chance to do that while we stand and sing.